Hey, party people, Techno here, and what I have in front of me is the Sparrows Vault, and this is basically kind of a puzzle box training aid for learning the principles of cracking safe dials. Now, when this comes out of the box, it is set to a default combination that you kind of have to figure out yourself using Sparrow's horrible instructions, or like I did, you can reference other videos on the internet to better understand how to actually go about this process. For me, videos by a YouTuber by the name of Keymaster were particularly helpful in getting this open for the first time. And this is set out of the package to use only two numbers to open up. So there are three wheel packs in this safe, and there are only two of them active due to the way that the what is referred to as the fence on the locking pawl is actually designed. So we only need two numbers to open this up. I successfully cracked this today, so I want to show you now the process for going about that. And then we'll take a look at the internal workings of this so we can kind of visualize what's going on behind the scenes in a safe dial. Now, the first thing that we need to do, as I said, there are three wheels in this wheel pack. Only two are active, but in any case, we need to pick up all of those wheels so that we can start to decode where the position of the gates on those wheels are. So in a lock like this, we'll see this better when it's open, but each wheel has a gate on it. When you set the number on the dial, you're actually aligning a particular wheel's gate with the locking pawl that is spring-loaded up here that'll fall into the gates when all the gates align. And what's actually falling into those is what's referred to as the fence. And then that allows you to use that as a mechanical lever to retract the deadbolt that is on the side of this lock or of the safe lock. So that's the mechanical principle behind it. And the first thing in this process is to pick up all of those wheels so that they're all aligned and we have a known starting point. And to do that, we're actually going to rotate this counterclockwise a minimum of 4 times because we have the drive wheel, which is connected directly to the dial. And we have each of those 3 wheels in the wheel pack. And that was definitely more than 4 times. And this is laying flat on its back, which makes this a little bit harder to work with. The dial on my sample is not particularly smooth. The mechanical tolerances here, not the mechanical tolerances necessarily, but the fit and finish of this could, I think, honestly be better. I understand that Sparrows is trying to make something that they can get out to a large number of people at a attractive price point, and I think it does accomplish that. But there are some tolerance issues with it, I think, but we won't get into that in this video. All right, so now we've got all of the wheels picked up. We're at 0. The first thing that we need to do is establish where our touch points are. So on the drive wheel that is at the back of the wheel pack, detached directly to the dial, there is an opening that would allow you, well, it's deep enough so that when the fence falls into all of those gates, it can actually move that as the lever to retract the deadbolt. And of course, that has 2 sides to the opening, and we need to find those. Those are the touch points for the drive wheel. So we're just going to kind of slowly work through the numbers here, and we're going to feel for those. You can actually hear them in this lock, and you can feel them as well. So right there, I could feel a definite click, for lack of a better term, like a interruption in the flow of the dial. And now that is my rightmost touch point. So the one on the left should be somewhere in here, and it looks like right there it is. So the touch points on this are between about 33, 33 and a half, and about 45, 45 and a half. And these positions are fixed throughout the course of decoding the combination. The drive wheel doesn't play a role in the actual combination of the lock, so these touch points are always going to be present at these positions, unless, of course, they're changed by actually altering the, and I don't know the correct terminology for this, but I think it's the spline. There are 4 positions that you can move the drive wheel to on the back of the wheel that will change where those touch points are. But in this case, without actually having the lock open to perform that process, these will always be in the same position. So let's call it 34 34, let's call it 33, and 45. Important to note here that the tolerances in this particular dial are in increments of 2.5 numbers. So really 2.5 numbers. So there's no fundamental difference between, say, 45 and 46. They're all within the same tolerance. And that's so that you don't have to be ultra precise when inputting the combination to open up the lock. Otherwise, you might, just by virtue of slightly over or under aligning the dial, not be able to open the lock. I'm sure there's a cost element in a lot of locks for this as well, because the wider the range of those tolerances are, I'm sure the manufacturer of the lock is less costly as well. But I digress. So now that we've located our touch points, what we need to do is let's align these wheel packs again. So I'm going to just get everything picked back up. And now we're going to go through the process of in increments of 2.5, because those are our tolerances, checking to see where the touch points are as we work our way through the numbers. And the first number that we're finding is actually the second number in the combination. This is 2 numbers to open this up by default. If this were a 3-number lock, then we're always first decoding the last number in that combination. So we're going to move this to 2.5. And then we're going to go back and check our touch points. And what will happen is, as we get closer to the gate on that third wheel pack, we're going to find that the touch points seem to converge on a smaller set of numbers. And that's because we're actually finding the gate in that third wheel and aligning it within the gap on the drive wheel. And that's going to give the impression that those touch points are now closer together than they were before. So going back to check this, I still feel my first one there at about 45, 46, and 33. And so we are going to go back past 0. This has the effect of picking up the wheel again, and we're going to move it to position 5 in increments of 2.5. And we'll continue this process, checking those touch points each time until we work our way through and find where there is a distinct change in the location of each touch point. And so far I've gotten up to 10, and the touch points have been in the same position each time. So move to 12.5, go back and check, still in the same position. Or I think I said 12.5 there before. That was actually closer to 17.5. So we're just looking for any indication that we have gotten those touch points closer together. And I don't know if it's due to the angle that I have this at now, but they're actually quite difficult to feel as opposed to where they were initially, or when I was working through this process initially. Set this down. Still no change. So we're up to 35 here. And now there has been a change. So we just went to 35, and now these touch points have actually converged closer together. So I'm feeling the touch points on the right-hand side still at the same position, 45, between 45 and 46, call it 45 and a half. But now our leftmost touch point is actually at 36, 36 and a half. So they've started to converge. So let's see what happens if we move to 37 and a half on the dial. Look at that. Now our leftmost touch point is all the way up at just about 39. Right touch point is still in the same location. Going to 40. Now our right touch point has moved to 41. We're between 41 and say 46, rough estimates. Now that's interesting. I got to 42.5 and I actually heard an audible click there and a slight sort of stutter in the wheel. So let's go back and let's check our touch points. Wow. Okay, so now the left touch point is right at just over 44, and the right touch point is just under 45, and the left touch point is just over 44. Very narrow gap here. So in that case, and also I have opened this before, so I do know what the actual first number is, but this being the process for finding that, we would proceed to go through the additional numbers here, so we could move past this position and we would go to 45, and then we would go back and check. And while this is still roughly in the same position, as we would proceed through sort of graphing this or mapping this, what we would find is now as we move away from that position, our touch points are going to start to open back up. So the convergence is right at that 42.5 number. That is the indication that 42.5 is the gate for the third wheel in this wheel pack, and hence the last number in our 2-number combination. Now, if this were a 3-number combination, we would proceed to do a similar process for wheel 2, and we would find out what that wheel pack's number is. But we can actually move on, since we're actually effectively looking for the last number in the combination, which is the first, because we're only working with 2 wheel packs. We can more or less brute force or just work through all possible combinations for that last one until we get an open on this. And to do that now, we're going to reset the wheel pack. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up all of those wheels again. And now if we were opening this, we're going to start by working in a clockwise direction. So now that I have picked up all the wheels counterclockwise and aligned them back to the original starting position, I'm actually going to do the exact opposite. And I'm going to spin this clockwise, minimum of 4 times, to pick up all of the wheels in the wheel pack in the opposite direction and get them aligned for the starting position. And then what we'll do is we'll just start working through our combination of numbers and find what that last number is to get an open. And to do that, let's start at 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to move counterclockwise past 0 one time to the initial number that we found, 42.5. The reason that we move past 0 is because we're basically dropping the second wheel from the motion and we're setting the third wheel. And then when we move backwards, we're going to interact with that gate. Or failing that, we're going to pick up the second wheel and we're going to move it backwards effectively to the next number, and we're going to continue to try those combinations. So we're going to go to 42.5. You can feel our touch points there. And now let's go back. And this did not result in an open. So let's move back to 0 in this clockwise direction. This is the point at which we're going to pick up that second wheel again. And we're going to move that second wheel to 97.5. So we're going to work backwards through this process. in a very similar fashion, moving past 0. So wheel 2 is parked. We're only acting on wheel 3 now. To our number that we found, 42.5. And then back, and we don't have an open. So again, we're going to go back. This is where we pick up wheel 2. We're going to move it to the position of 95. We're going to drop wheel 2 and act only on wheel 3. Go to our found number, and still no open. And now this is the process that we repeat to effectively brute force the final number in the combination. So again, moving wheel 2 to 92.5 now. Work past 0, set our number. No open. So now we're going to go back and we're going to pick up wheel 2 again. Move it to the next position at 90. And again, we just repeat this process until we hit that open. Each time we pass through that section, I can feel those touch points again that are on that drive cam. And each time that we hit that gate on wheel 3, you might actually be able to hear that on camera. We can hear that audible click. Back to 42.5, no open. So back to picking up our wheel and moving to the next position, which is going to be 82.5. And this is the point at which on camera it probably starts to look pretty repetitive. And it is repetitive, but it is also a bit exciting knowing that you are zeroing in on the final number to open up the safe, having not previously known the combination. So that's definitely part of the thrill for the safe cracking, the lock picking, all of that stuff, is finding your way into something that should have kept you out. Or at least was designed to keep you out. Still no open. Moving past those touch points, back to picking up wheel 2 again, moving it to the 75 position. Go past 0 one time to the number we previously found. Still no open. $72.5. Past 0, go to 42.5. Still nothing. Go to 70. Past 0 to 42.5. Now this is where things get a little bit interesting for this lock, because this actually, the combination should be 70 and 42.5. So we should be at an open at this point in time, but I found that it doesn't always seem to want to work the way that it should. Thankfully it did when I cracked the safe, or I would have just bypassed this and not really, would have been an exercise in frustration to figure out where those numbers actually were. So I'm going to pick up wheel 3 and rotate it. Pick up wheel 2 and position it fully back around to 70. And I think what's going on here, so I searched online for this a little bit, and I'm not the only one who's experienced this issue with these. And what it is, at least what it seems to be, is just based on the construction of the lock, the fence that is on this pawl is only supposed to interact with wheel 3 and wheel 2, but it seems like just because of poor manufacturing tolerances, it may in fact also partially interact with wheel 3, so it can be a little finicky when it comes to opening. So now we've hit 42.5, we've come back, and we should be in a position to get an open here. So I'm going to try this again. Move the 70 past 0 one time to 42.5. Still nothing. So let's try moving wheel 2 fully back around again. There we go. You probably heard that. So that means that the fence actually fell into both of those wheels. And now we're going to retract that bolt. So not an ideal opening scenario in that I actually had to retry the connect combination multiple times there. But I think that's down to manufacturing, again, those tolerance issues just in the parts. Perhaps these could be manufactured slightly better. What I'll probably do is, now that I've recorded this, I will go ahead and probably file that fence down to make sure that it doesn't touch wheel 3 at all, and that the process for opening is a bit smoother. And if that doesn't work, then oh well. I suppose as we move on, I'll be trying the different pawls to increase the difficulty of this lock moving forward anyway, so the loss of that the beginner, let's say the beginner combination pawl, is not going to be a major loss. But here that we have this open, you can see that pawl right here, and the wheel pack, the drive cam, all of this stuff. And the pawls, there are 4 of them in here, and they all increase slightly in difficulty. So you can see here that we have what's in here is a stepped one that is supposedly supposed to work only on wheel 2 and wheel 3. I think this one might be interacting slightly with wheel 1 as well. But this one is stepped, as you might be able to see here. This one is the one that comes in by default. And this stepping allows you to more positively feel, at least if I'm understanding correctly, this allows you to more positively identify where those individual gates are. So lowering the difficulty for this, for that beginning opening. There's also smooth fences, which would be the higher level of difficulty. So if I am correct in my assumptions here, the next stage would probably be to take this to a 3 combination, or 3 number combination, with the stepped fence that is going to help increase the feel for identifying those gates. And then after that, you would move back to a 2 combination number, but using the smooth fence. So that's going to increase the difficulty of feeling where those gates are. And then finally, the most difficult implementation here would be the 3 number combination with the smooth fence on the pawl. And of course, you can change the position. Again, I think this is called the spline. I'm not 100% sure, but you can change the position of the drive cam so that the touch points are in various, at least in 4 different locations along the wheel. And then you can also, of course, change the actual combination of these dials so that you can randomize this and you're not just working with the same combination time over time. So really pretty cool from a training standpoint. It would be nice maybe if there was a higher level of tolerance and fit and finish here. These all appear to be cast parts. And I think what's happening is there's just a little extra material on the ends of some of these that are causing issues, or at least that seems to be the case as I was searching online for the reason that the combination that I initially found didn't seem to work 100% of the time on subsequent opens. But now I'm going to move the position of the camera here, and we're going to repeat the process while looking at the internals of the lock so we can get a better visualization of what's actually happening here with this. So for the moment, I'm going to cut to a new camera angle. Okay, so now hopefully you can better see the internals of this lock, and we're just going to repeat the process. So here, of course, we have the locking pawl. As I showed earlier, each of these has a fence on the back, which is going to fall into the gates that you can see here on wheel 3. So there's the gate for wheel 3. Maybe I should get something that's going to help me sort of point better at these. we'll utilize this antenna that just happened to be laying on a nearby desk. So here we have the gate for wheel 3. This is the opening on the drive cam that I was referring to earlier that allows you to feel those touch points. So whenever you're working through this, you might not be able to see that. Now we just kind of fell into that gate. So let's move that out. I'll separate. Now I'm going in the opposite direction. So I've dropped wheel 3. And you can kind of maybe see that we hit the edges of this opening on the drive cam. This is what we're feeling whenever we feel those touch points. And then what's happening whenever the touch points appear to converge is that we are actually falling slightly into one of these gates. Like that. And then when we move back to feel those touch points, we're trapped between now the gate in the wheel and the one side of the touch point on the drive cam. And this is what gives the impression that those touch points converge as we get closer to the actual number. So starting this process over, let's go ahead and pick up all of the wheels and move them back to the 0 position by moving the dial counterclockwise. I don't know if you can make it out on camera, but as we continue to rotate this, each time we're picking up a new wheel so that these are now all moving in unison. So we should have all of these, and I will move them to the 0 position. So this is the point at which we are starting at 0. And now we would move this clockwise. Notice that none of the wheels are moving. So none of the wheels, we've dropped all the wheels in the wheel pack. They're all aligned in their, let's say, neutral positions or zeroed out positions. But as we move this back, this is how we identify our touch points initially. So that's where we're picking up those touch points between, what were the numbers, 34 and 46, something along those lines. And now when we go back past 0, notice that we're moving all the wheels in the wheel pack. And this is where in those increments of 2.5, we're going to test out each of these. We're going to move the wheel in increments of 2.5, check our touch points, move in 2.5. I'm sure I'm moving more than 2.5 now, but for the sake of brevity, we don't need to repeat the process as precisely from this viewpoint. And we would just continue to check those touch points as we move through here, and you can see that we're getting closer to the gate here that is coming up. Until we eventually fall into that, and now we're going to feel those touch points converge. So that's how we detect the last number in the combination on wheel 3. Wheel 3 is the first one that we pick, or it's the last one we pick up, and it's the first one we drop. So it's the first one we find the number for. I think I got that accurately there. So now once we've found this, again, we're only working with 2 numbers, and the second number we can iterate over the dial and we can figure out which number it is. So this is the point at which we're going to zero everything out again. Make sure that all of these wheels are picked up and moving in unison. Zero that out, and now we're going to go and pick them up in the opposite direction as if we were opening the safe dial. So now I've picked up wheel 3. So first wheel we pick up, last one we drop. I had the opposite previously. Now at this point, pretty soon, we're going to pick up wheel 2, and there you go. And you can feel this in the dial too. If you're moving slowly and paying attention, you can feel a greater level of resistance or almost the perception of weight on the dial itself as you continue to pick up wheels and move them. And then finally, we're going to pick up the third wheel. And now we have them all aligned again. And we're going to drop these all at 0. So now this is where you would typically actually move this to the first number in your combination. But if we're searching for that first number in our combination, of course, what we're going to do is we're going to move to 2.5, as we did when we were trying to search through this process. So now we have to, now notice as I move backwards, all of the wheels are stationary. So we have to move counterclockwise now until we pick up wheel number 1. Or I'm sorry, wheel number 3, the first number we found, last number in the combination. So it gets kind of hard to keep straight, but we're going to move that to the number that we found when we initially did that first identification of our gate. 42.5, so that falls in, and now we're going to move backwards, and we don't have the correct number on wheel 2, therefore the pawl doesn't fall all the way into both gates, and we don't actually catch this end to open up. But as we repeat this process, that's what's going to happen. So now we're going to move all the way back, pick up wheel 2, and we're going to incrementally move that, and we're going to continue to test this process. Grab wheel 3, move it to our number, see if we have an open. We don't. So then we go back, pick up wheel 2, and continue to increment this process until, of course, we get to the number 70. Or what we hope is going to be an open. So let's move this to 70. And if this behaves the way it's supposed to, now we drop wheel 2, leaving it at that position. Go pick up wheel 3 again. Drop it at the number we found, 42.5. And I can already tell you that didn't work because this did not fall the whole way into the gate. So we're seeing the same repeat of the issue that we just found a little bit earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a full rotation and pick these up. And at some point here, if this is getting caught on wheel 3, there is a point at which it's going to fall off wheel 3 and then it won't be an issue anymore. So I'm going to rotate this fully back to 70. At which we drop that, pick up wheel 3, drop it at 42.5. And it doesn't look like we had any success getting that again, so let's try again. Nope. Admittedly, this is a little frustrating to have this behave this way because it definitely impedes on the learning process whenever you're trying to dial this in to get it to where it's behaving as it ought to. So maybe some slight modifications with some files are necessary in this case. So now I've just parked wheel 2 on 70, which should be our open. It's definitely where the gate is. There we go. And we've fallen into that position now. So now that both gates are perfectly aligned, of course, this has fallen in. Now we can use the dial wheel to actually move the pawl, which is connected to the deadbolt, which, because the cover is off, is now trapped in place. So I have to move this little lever here, and that's what's going to retract that and open up the safe. So that's the process. I mean, apart from the finickiness of this particular version of the Sparrow safe, hopefully that was helpful and educational if you're trying to work through this process yourself. And also if you're experiencing a similar issue to the tolerances of the fence and the wheel packs, just know you're not alone. So the answer there may be to actually take it upon yourself to make some minor modifications to these parts. So until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Hopefully this wasn't too painful to sit through. And take care. I will talk to you later.